The crystal towers of Centauri Station pierced the void like frozen lightning, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 artificial suns. Within the central spire, 847 species had gathered for what they considered a routine matter. The humans were becoming troublesome. Dr. Emily Watson adjusted her breathing apparatus as she walked through corridors designed for beings twice her size. The gravity here pressed down with uncomfortable weight, a not-so-subtle reminder that this place was not built for her kind. Alien delegates passed her with barely concealed amusement. Some pointed at her small frame with appendages that resembled claws, tentacles, or worse. Others made sounds that her translator identified as laughter. The main chamber opened before her like the mouth of some great beast. Tiered seating rose in perfect circles, accommodating everything from floating gas clouds to crystalline beings that communicated through light patterns. At the center of it all sat Admiral Corvin, his scaled hide gleaming with an oily sheen that spoke of toxic homeworlds and aggressive evolution. The Altarian Empire had ruled this council for 600 years, and Corvin embodied everything that made them successful predators. "The primitive speaks," Corvin announced as Emily approached the speaker's platform. His voice carried through translation systems that stripped away any warmth, leaving only cold authority. "Tell us, little mammal, why your species continues to pollute our communication networks with requests for audience." Emily had practiced this moment for months, but standing here among beings who could crush her without effort made her preparation feel inadequate. She activated her personal translator and began the speech that would either save humanity or doom it. "Honored representatives, Earth comes before you seeking peaceful integration into galactic civilization. We offer scientific knowledge, cultural exchange, and trade partnerships that could benefit all species." The chamber erupted in what passed for laughter among 800 different evolutionary paths. A being that resembled a walking tree creaked with what might have been mirth. Something with too many eyes blinked in rapid patterns that her translator couldn't decode. The gas cloud delegates shifted colors in what appeared to be amusement. "Scientific knowledge," repeated Corvin, his voice dripping with disdain. "Your species discovered faster than light travel only 50 of your years ago. Your weapons are chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Your largest vessels measure 3 of your kilometers in length." He gestured to the viewing screens that showed images of Earth's public space fleet. "We have individual fighters larger than your flagships." Emily maintained her composure despite the rising heat in her cheeks. The images Corvin displayed were exactly what Earth wanted them to see. Ancient chemical rockets, primitive fusion reactors, and FTL drives that barely functioned. The real human fleet remained hidden in the outer system, cloaked by technology these beings couldn't detect. "We understand our technological limitations," Emily replied carefully. "That is precisely why we seek membership. Earth has much to learn from the wisdom of older civilizations." A delegate from the Vorthan Collective raised what might have been a hand. Its translator rendered its speech in flat mechanical tones. "The humans demonstrate classic aggressive tendencies. They wage wars among themselves using nuclear weapons. They strip mine their own homeworld. They show no respect for environmental balance. Furthermore," added a representative from the Zephyrian hives, "they reproduce at unsustainable rates and consume resources without regard for future generations. These are the behaviors of a plague species, not a civilized one." Corvin leaned forward in his massive chair, designed to accommodate his 4-meter frame. "The Galactic Council has reviewed your species' psychological profiles, cultural patterns, and biological imperatives. The conclusion is unanimous." He paused for effect, letting silence fill the chamber. "Humanity is unsuitable for independent membership in galactic civilization." Emily felt her heart rate spike, but she kept her expression neutral. "Then what does the Council propose?" "Vassal status under Altarian oversight," Corvin announced, his tone suggesting he was being generous. "Your military assets will be surrendered to prevent further environmental damage to your homeworld. Your population will undergo genetic modification to reduce aggressive tendencies and improve work efficiency. Your reproductive rates will be regulated to sustainable levels. The term struck Emily like physical blows. Genetic modification meant the end of humanity as a species. Surrendering their military meant defenselessness against any future threat. Regulated reproduction meant slow extinction through bureaucratic control. These terms are unacceptable, Emily said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her. The chamber fell silent. For 3 millennia, no species had refused the Council's generous offer of vassal status. The alternatives were unpleasant and brief. Corvin's scaled features arranged themselves into what might have been a smile on a less predatory face. Your acceptance is not required, little mammal. The Council's decision is final. You have 7 standard days to begin compliance procedures. He activated a holographic display showing the current date and time. If your species has not begun surrendering military assets by then, the Council will take corrective action. Corrective action, Emily repeated, though she already knew what those words meant. Your homeworld will be sterilized to prevent the spread of your aggressive genes, Corvin explained with casual indifference. Any off-world colonies will be eliminated. Your species will serve as an example to other primitives who might consider defying galactic authority. Emily nodded slowly, committing every word to memory. Her neural implant was recording everything for transmission to Earth, though she suspected these beings already knew that. They wanted humanity to understand exactly what would happen if they chose resistance. 7 days, she confirmed. 7 days, Corvin agreed. Use them wisely. Perhaps your leaders will see reason when faced with extinction. Emily turned and walked from the chamber, feeling hundreds of alien eyes following her movement. Some looked at her with pity, others with contempt, and a few with what might have been hunger. The crystal corridors seemed longer on her way out, and the artificial gravity felt heavier with each step. As her shuttle cleared Centauri Station's docking bay, Emily activated the quantum transmitter hidden in her jacket. The message would reach Earth in 3 hours, carried by technology that these arrogant beings couldn't detect or intercept. Soon, Admiral Corvin and his council would learn the difference between primitive and peaceful. Humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this moment. The real war would begin now. The message from Centauri Station arrived at the Titan complex during the lunar eclipse, when Earth's most classified facility operated under complete communications blackout. General Robert Hayes stood in the observation deck 3 kilometers beneath Titan's frozen surface, watching technicians prepare humanity's real response to the galaxy's ultimatum. Unlike the crude ships the aliens had observed around Earth, the vessels in this hidden shipyard moved with fluid grace through artificial gravity fields. The smallest fighter craft measured 15 kilometers from nose to tail, their hulls composed of exotic matter that existed partially outside normal spacetime. Energy readings from these ships would have caused panic attacks among the Council's finest physicists. "Sir, Dr. Watson's message is confirmed," reported Lieutenant David Park from his console. "The Council gave us exactly what we expected. 7 days to surrender or face extermination." Hayes nodded grimly as he reviewed the tactical displays. 50,000 alien vessels were already moving toward Sol System, their massive forms crawling through space at speeds that seemed impressive to beings who still thought in terms of conventional physics. The alien fleet would arrive in 6 days, giving humanity 24 hours to make their point clear. "Send word to Captain Chun," Hayes ordered. "Operation Prometheus is authorized." The general moved through corridors lined with displays showing the true scope of human technology. Quantum surveillance networks monitored every major world in the galaxy, their sensors operating from dimensions the aliens couldn't detect. Automated defense platforms surrounded Sol System in concentric shells, each one capable of destabilizing small moons. The gravity lance weapons could crack planets, while the quantum disruptors could erase matter from existence entirely. Dr. Sarah Kim, Earth's lead xenobiology expert, joined Hayes at the Central Command Station. She had spent decades studying alien physiology, psychology, and military doctrine through intercepted communications. The Altarians are completely predictable, she reported. They've used the same intimidation tactics for 6 centuries. Overwhelming force, demands for surrender, followed by planetary sterilization if refused. They've never encountered real resistance, Hayes observed, watching long-range sensors track the approaching alien fleet. Every species they've conquered had energy-based weapons and defensive shields. Standard galactic technology, which makes them completely unprepared for gravitational warfare, Kim agreed. Their shields can deflect plasma and particle beams, but they can't stop space-time distortion. Their armor is designed to absorb kinetic impacts, not quantum destabilization. Hayes pulled up holographic displays showing the alien fleet's composition. Massive dreadnoughts bristling with energy weapons, carrier ships launching fighter swarms, and command vessels coordinating the assault. Impressive by galactic standards, but humanity had moved beyond such crude approaches decades ago. The Council thinks we're primitives because we use chemical rockets and nuclear reactors, Hayes mused. They never considered that we might be hiding our real capabilities? The deception had been carefully maintained for 50 years. When humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel, Earth scientists immediately recognized they had discovered something beyond normal galactic understanding. Instead of announcing their breakthrough, they had built primitive FTL drives using conventional technology and allowed alien observers to study them. Meanwhile, the real research continued in hidden facilities throughout the solar system, Captain. Lisa Chen's face appeared on the main screen as her ship, the Prometheus, approached its target coordinates. Unlike the massive, cumbersome vessels favored by galactic civilizations, the Prometheus was sleek and deadly, its hull incorporating materials that shouldn't exist according to standard physics. The ship's gravity lance drew power from contained micro-black holes, while its defensive systems operated in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Target acquired, Chun reported. Kepler Prime shows optimal conditions for demonstration. Uninhabited, stable orbit, molten core suitable for induced destabilization. Hayes studied the tactical display showing Kepler Prime, a barren world roughly Earth-sized that orbited a distant star. The Altarians had marked it for strip mining operations, making it the perfect target for humanity's message. Destroying an uninhabited world would demonstrate capability without crossing the line into genocide. Rules of engagement are clear, Hayes reminded Chun. This is a warning shot, not an act of war. Make it spectacular enough that they understand our capabilities, but surgical enough that they know we could have done much worse. Chun nodded from her command chair. Understood, sir. The gravity lance is charged and ready. Target analysis indicates complete planetary fracture with minimal debris scatter. The energy release should be visible from 15 systems away. The Council needs to see that we're not the primitives they think we are, Hayes said. But they also need to understand that we're not monsters. We could target their homeworlds, but we choose not to. The General activated the ship-wide communication system, addressing the crew members who would carry out humanity's first military action in galactic space. Ladies and gentlemen, today we step out of the shadows. For 50 years, we've watched the galaxy's bullies destroy species that couldn't defend themselves. Today we show them that humanity is not defenseless. On the tactical display, alien surveillance drones continued their lazy orbits around Sol System, monitoring primitive human ships and reporting back to their masters. Those drones would observe nothing unusual until it was far too late. By the time the aliens realized their mistake, half the galaxy would have witnessed humanity's demonstration. Chin, you are authorized to fire when ready, Hayes announced. The captain's image shifted as she leaned forward in her chair. Gravity lance charging to full power. Target lock confirmed. Firing in 10 seconds. Hayes watched the countdown timer reach 0, knowing that in a few minutes, the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The Council's arrogance would become their weakness. An Earth secret would finally be revealed in the most dramatic fashion possible. The demonstration was about to begin. Admiral Corvin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory, watching the primitive Sol system grow larger on his tactical displays. Around him, 50,000 vessels of the Altarian fleet moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the deadly beauty of overwhelming force. This would be the easiest conquest in his long career. "Status report," Corvin commanded, his scaled hands clasping behind his back as he surveyed the bridge crew. Altarian officers moved efficiently. Between stations, their predatory grace evident in every motion. They had performed this ritual of destruction hundreds of times before. "Human defensive positions are pathetic," reported Commander Thane from the tactical station. 3 orbital platforms around their homeworld, each one smaller than our escort. Fighters. Their fleet consists of 47 vessels, none longer than 5 kilometers. They're not even attempting to form defensive formations. Corvin allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The humans were behaving exactly as expected, paralyzed by fear, clinging to their primitive technology, hoping for mercy that would never come. "Have they responded to our final ultimatum?" "Negative, sir. No communications from Earth for the past 18 hours. They appear to be in complete communications blackout." "Fear," Corvin diagnosed. "They know their end approaches and lack the courage to face it with dignity." He gestured to the main display showing Earth's blue-white surface. "Prepare the planetary bombardment arrays. We'll strip away their atmosphere layer by layer until they beg for the quick death they should have." "Accepted." Light years away, Captain Lisa Chun guided the Prometheus through the void toward Kepler Prime. Her ship moved without conventional propulsion, instead manipulating gravity fields to slide through spacetime like a knife through silk. The vessel's exotic matter hull made it essentially invisible to conventional sensors, while its quantum drives operated in dimensions the galaxy's physicists hadn't discovered yet. "Approaching optimal firing position," reported her weapons officer, Lieutenant James Torres. "Gravity lance is fully charged and target analysis is complete." Chun studied the tactical display showing Kepler Prime in perfect detail. The planet was a dead world with a molten core, no atmosphere, and no possibility of life. More importantly, it lay within neutral space claimed by no major power, making it the ideal demonstration target. When this world died, no innocent beings would suffer. "The lance will penetrate directly through the planetary core," Torres continued. "Quantum destabilization will cause uncontrolled fusion reactions throughout the mantle. The planet should fracture along the equatorial plane within 90 seconds of impact." "Confirmed," Chum replied, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to unleash. "This shot will be heard across the galaxy. Make sure it counts." The Prometheus dropped out of quantum displacement 30,000 kilometers. From Kepler Prime, through the main view screen, Chun could see the planet rotating slowly, its surface scarred by ancient impacts and volcanic activity. Soon it would join the asteroid belts as a testament to human engineering. "All departments report ready," announced the ship's AI in its calm, synthetic voice. "Gravitational lance is at full charge. Targeting systems show green across all boards. Quantum containment fields are stable." Chun activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. Today we send a message that will echo through history. The galaxy's bullies think they can threaten Earth with impunity. They're about to learn otherwise." She paused, considering the weight of her next words. "Fire." The gravity lance unleashed forces that existed at the very foundation of reality. Instead of energy beams or projectile weapons, it fired a concentrated distortion in spacetime itself. The weapon was invisible to conventional observation. Detectable only by its gravitational effects on nearby matter, the lance struck Kepler Prime with surgical precision, penetrating straight through the planet's core without disturbing its surface. For 30 seconds, nothing appeared to happen. The world continued its rotation as if untouched by humanity's most advanced weapon. Then the seismic readings spiked beyond measurement. Deep within Kepler Prime's core, quantum bonds began breaking down in cascading chain reactions. The gravitational distortion had introduced instabilities that spread through the planet's molten heart like cracks in breaking glass. Temperatures rose beyond stellar levels as matter converted directly to energy. The planet's surface began to bulge outward along the equatorial line, as if some giant hand was squeezing it from within. Massive fissures opened across continents, venting superheated plasma into space. The rotation began to wobble as the core's gravitational field destabilized. "Planetary fracture in progress," Torres reported, his voice filled with professional satisfaction. "Core destabilization proceeding exactly as calculated." Chion watched in fascination as Kepler Prime came apart before her eyes. The equatorial bulge grew more pronounced, stretching the planet into an oval shape. Cracks spread from pole to pole like lightning frozen in stone. The gravitational lance had done its work perfectly, with a soundless explosion that registered across subspace. Kepler Prime split in half. The two hemispheres spun away from each other, trailing streams of molten rock and superheated gas. The energy release created a brief new star as matter converted to pure radiation. Shock waves rippled through local spacetime, detectable by sensors throughout the sector. "Clean separation," Torres announced. "Both halves maintain structural integrity. Debris scatter is minimal and within predicted parameters." Shun nodded with grim satisfaction. The demonstration had worked exactly as designed. Spectacular enough to terrify any observers, but controlled enough to show that humanity could have done far worse. A less precise weapon would have reduced the planet to scattered atoms. The gravity lance had split it cleanly, leaving two dead worlds where one had existed moments before. "Transmit the recording to all galactic communication networks," Chun ordered. "Maximum dispersal, all frequencies, every major language." The message that accompanied the footage was simple and direct. This was a warning shot. The next one won't be aimed at an empty world. Across the galaxy, automated monitoring stations detected the massive energy release from Kepler Prime. Within hours, the images would reach every major world, showing the impossible sight of a planet split in half by unknown technology. The footage would spark panic in government halls and terror in military command centers. Admiral Corvin's fleet was still 6 hours from Earth when the emergency communications began flooding their systems. The Admiral's expression shifted from confidence to confusion to dawning horror as he watched Kepler Prime die on his tactical displays. "Sir," Commander Thane reported with barely controlled fear, "Galactic Command is ordering immediate fleet withdrawal. All offensive operations against Sol System are suspended pending emergency council session." Corvin stared at the images of a world that no longer existed, trying to understand what he was seeing. No known technology could split a planet so cleanly. The energy requirements alone should have been beyond any civilization's capabilities. "The humans did this," he whispered, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. The prey had revealed themselves to be predators, and the galaxy would never be the same. The emergency session at Centauri Station began with empty seats and ended with broken alliances. Dr. Marcus Webb, Earth's chief physicist, watched through hidden surveillance networks as the galaxy's most powerful beings struggled to comprehend what they had witnessed. The crystal amphitheater that had once echoed with arrogant laughter now trembled with genuine fear. Only half the usual representatives had bothered to attend. The others were busy fortifying their home systems or fleeing to remote colonies. Those who remained huddled in small groups, speaking in whispers about weapons that shouldn't exist and implications too, terrible to discuss openly. Admiral Corvin sat alone in his massive chair, his scaled hide having lost its oily sheen. The proud Altarian warrior looked like he had aged decades in the 12 hours since Kepler Prime's destruction. His fleet remained stationed at the edge of Sol System, afraid to advance or retreat without orders from a council that no longer knew what orders to give. "The energy readings make no sense," announced Dr. Veltar, the galaxy's foremost expert in exotic physics. The crystalline being's light patterns flickered with confusion as it addressed the nearly empty chamber. "The humans somehow destabilize quantum bonds at the planetary core level. This requires technology that violates our understanding of fundamental forces. A representative from the Sindathi Collective raised one of its numerous arms. Our intelligence services have been monitoring human communications for decades. They show no evidence of advanced weapons research. Their published scientific papers discuss primitive fusion reactors and chemical propulsion. Clearly, their published papers are deliberate misdirection, replied Minister Cathan of the Vorthan Republic. The question becomes, what else are they hiding? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. If humanity could split planets, what other capabilities might they possess? Their primitive FTL drives could be deceptions hiding faster ships. Their small fleet could mask larger forces. Their apparent isolation might conceal galaxy-spanning surveillance networks. Webb smiled grimly as he monitored the growing paranoia. Earth's deception had worked perfectly. By appearing primitive while developing advanced technology in secret, humanity had achieved something no other species managed. They had surprised the galaxy's established powers. We need immediate intelligence on human capabilities, demanded Corvin, some of his old authority returning to his voice. Deploy deep space reconnaissance. Infiltrate their communication networks. Find out what we're really dealing with. What Corvin didn't know was that every intelligence probe sent toward Sol System was detected long before it reached the outer planets. Automated defense networks operating in 11 dimensions identified and destroyed alien surveillance devices with casual efficiency. The few that escaped destruction were allowed to observe carefully prepared false targets, more primitive ships, outdated technology, and misleading activity patterns back on Earth. General Hayes reviewed the intelligence reports flooding in from across the galaxy. Panic was spreading faster than information as species that had never known fear suddenly discovered vulnerability. Military commanders were recalculating defensive strategies based on weapons they couldn't understand. Political leaders were wondering if their ancient alliances would protect them from human retaliation. The Altarian fleet is maintaining position. At the system's edge, reported his intelligence officer, Colonel Maria Santos. They're clearly afraid to advance, but they also can't retreat without losing face completely. Let them stew, Hayes replied. Fear is more valuable than victory right now. They need time to truly understand what they're dealing with. The general activated a secure channel to Dr. Watson, who was preparing for her return to Centauri Station. The diplomatic phase of their operation was about to begin, and Earth needed to appear reasonable despite their overwhelming display of force. Doctor, you're cleared for Phase 2, Hayes announced. Make sure they understand we're willing to negotiate, but only as equals. Dr. Watson nodded from her shuttle as she approached the alien station. The psychological profile suggests they'll be much more receptive now. Nothing motivates diplomacy like existential terror. The journey to Centauri Station took place through space filled with fleeing ships. Entire merchant fleets were abandoning trade routes that passed near human space. Military vessels were repositioning to protect their home systems. Even the normally aggressive Altarian Empire was recalling its expansion, fleets to defensive positions. When Watson's shuttle docked at Centauri Station, she found a very different reception waiting. The same aliens who had mocked her tiny frame now watched her with barely concealed terror. Some backed away as she passed, while others tried to scan her for hidden weapons using devices that couldn't detect the quantum modifications in her cells. The council chamber was almost empty when she entered. Admiral Corvin sat with a handful of senior representatives, all looking like survivors of some great disaster. The arrogant confidence that had defined galactic civilization for millennia had evaporated in the space of a single demonstration. Dr. Watson, Corvin acknowledged, his voice carefully neutral. We have reviewed the incident at Kepler Prime. Incident, Watson repeated, allowing a slight smile to cross her face. An interesting way to describe a weapons test. The words struck the assembled aliens like physical blows. A weapons test implied that splitting planets was routine for humanity, something they did for practice rather than as their ultimate capability. What does Earth want? Asked Minister Vex. Of the hegemony, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. The multi-limbed being's translator rendered its words with desperate urgency. "The same thing we wanted a week ago," Watson replied calmly. "Peaceful integration into galactic civilization. Trade agreements? Cultural exchange? The opportunity to contribute to the greater good of all species." "But now you negotiate from a position of strength," Corvin observed. "Now we negotiate from a position of equality," Watson corrected. "Earth has no interest in conquest or domination. We simply refuse to accept subjugation." The distinction was crucial. Conquest implied aggression and expansion. Equality suggested that humanity would be content with fair treatment and mutual respect. The aliens desperately wanted to believe that these terrifying new neighbors could be satisfied with reasonable terms. "The previous offer of vassal status is withdrawn," Corvin announced formally. "The Council is prepared to discuss full membership terms." Watson nodded as if this had always been inevitable. "Earth appreciates the Council's wisdom. We look forward to productive negotiations." What she didn't mention was the detailed intelligence Earth had gathered on every species present. Their military capabilities, economic vulnerabilities, and political structures were all mapped in exquisite detail. If negotiations failed, humanity wouldn't need to split any more planets. They could simply turn off the power grids, crash the stock markets, or disable the communications networks that held galactic civilization together, but that knowledge would remain secret for now. Earth had made its point with overwhelming force. Now it was time to demonstrate that they could be reasonable neighbors to those who treated them with respect. The galaxy was learning that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't the gravity lance that could split worlds. It was the wisdom to know when not to use it. 2 years after the Kepler Prime demonstration, Ambassador Rachel Stone walked through the corridors of New Geneva Station, humanity's first permanent embassy in galactic space. The massive structure orbited between 3 major trade routes, its gleaming halls filled with representatives from hundreds of species who had come to understand that Earth was no longer the primitive backwater they had once dismissed. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. Species that had never shown fear were now competing to offer humanity favorable trade agreements. Military alliances that had dominated galactic politics for centuries were restructuring themselves around the new reality of human power. Even the mighty Altarian Empire had requested joint training exercises, hoping to learn from the tactics that had made their invasion fleet look like children playing with toys. Stone paused at a viewing port to watch the commercial traffic flowing past the station. Human-designed ships moved among the alien vessels, their sleek forms a stark contrast to the massive, ungainly constructions favored by older civilizations. Earth's engineering philosophy emphasized efficiency over intimidation, functionality over display, and the results spoke for themselves in faster travel times and reduced operating costs. "Ambassador, the morning briefing is ready," announced Lieutenant Tom Baker, her aide and one of the few people aboard who knew the full extent of human capabilities. "We have requests from 12 species for technology transfers, 6 applications for defensive pacts, and 3 marriage proposals from alien diplomats." Stone smiled at the last item. Romance was apparently universal, even when it involved species that breathed methane or reproduced through budding. "Schedule the technology transfer meetings for this afternoon. The defensive pact discussions can wait until next week. As for the marriage proposals, send them to the Cultural Exchange Department." The morning briefing took place in a conference room designed to accommodate beings of all sizes and atmospheric requirements. Representatives from the major galactic powers gathered around a table that adjusted its height and composition based on each participant's needs. The room's atmosphere was carefully balanced to provide breathable conditions for carbon-based life while maintaining pressurized sections for beings who required different environments. Admiral Thane, former second-in-command of the fleet that had threatened Earth, now served as the Altarian Empire's liaison to humanity. His scaled features had gained new lines of stress over the past 2 years as he struggled to understand military doctrine that made his centuries of experience obsolete. "The situation in the Omega sector continues to deteriorate," Thane reported. his translator rendering his words with military precision. The Ravager swarms have consumed 3 more systems. Traditional weapons prove ineffective against their biomechanical hulls. The Ravagers represented exactly the kind of threat that had previously required massive military campaigns involving dozens of species and millions of casualties. The insectoid machines consumed entire worlds to fuel their reproduction cycles, turning planets into nurseries for ever larger swarms. Previous containment efforts had succeeded only through overwhelming numerical superiority and acceptable losses. Earth's response? Asked Delegate Mora of the Sandathi Collective, her multiple eyes focusing on Stone with obvious hope. The Prometheus battle group will handle the situation, Stone replied calmly. Estimated time to full containment, 72 hours. The assembled aliens exchanged glances that mixed relief with lingering disbelief. 2 years of evidence hadn't fully convinced them that humanity could solve problems that stumped the entire galaxy. The idea that 3 human ships could accomplish what required fleets of thousands still seemed impossible. What they didn't understand was that the Ravagers' biomechanical nature made them vulnerable to quantum disintegration. A few precisely. Place shots from human weaponry would cause their organic components to simply cease existing, leaving dead metal husks floating in space. The technology that could split planets made destroying space bugs almost trivially easy. Speaking of military matters, Thane continued, the Empire formally requests human assistance in upgrading our defensive systems. Recent war games have shown that our current technology provides inadequate protection against modern threats. Stone nodded diplomatically. Earth is always willing to assist allied species with defensive improvements. We'll schedule a technical exchange mission next month. The reality was more complex than Thane realized. Human sensors could detect every Altarian military installation throughout their empire, while human ships could reach any Altarian world in hours rather than months. If the Empire ever became hostile again, their upgraded defenses would be irrelevant against weapons they couldn't see coming, but Earth had no interest in conquest. The goal was stability and mutual prosperity, which required that other species feel secure enough to focus on trade and development rather than military competition. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's chief xenobiologist, entered the conference room, carrying a datapad filled with the morning's research reports. Over the past 2 years, human scientists had made remarkable discoveries by studying alien biology and psychology. The galaxy's older species had become complacent in their research, content to maintain existing knowledge rather than seek new understanding. The medical exchange programs continued to show excellent results, Rodriguez reported. Human treatments have eliminated the Vorthan reproductive plague that has affected their species for 6 centuries. In return, their regenerative techniques have provided breakthrough treatments for human cellular damage. The medical exchanges represented one of humanity's greatest diplomatic successes. By sharing relatively simple biological knowledge, Earth had saved billions of alien lives while gaining access to technologies that extended human lifespans and improved quality of life. The exchanges proved that cooperation benefited everyone involved. Stone reviewed the diplomatic schedule on her personal tablet. 3 new species had requested membership negotiations. 5 others wanted to upgrade their current agreements to full alliance status. The hegemony was proposing a joint research initiative to explore unmapped regions of the galaxy. Every request represented progress toward the peaceful, prosperous, galactic civilization that Earth envisioned. But success required constant vigilance to ensure that gratitude didn't transform into dependence or resentment. Any security concerns? Stone asked Colonel David Park, the station's military commander. 2 minor incidents, Park replied. A Zephyrian spy was caught attempting to infiltrate our computer systems. Standard interrogation revealed he was working for their intelligence service, not any hostile organization. We sent him home with a polite warning. Stone suppressed a smile. The polite warning had probably included a demonstration of human counterintelligence capabilities that would keep Zephyrian spies awake at night for months. The second incident involved a group of Altarian researchers who tried to analyze debris from Kepler Prime, Park continued. They wanted to understand how our weapons achieve such clean planetary fracture. Their findings? Nothing useful. The gravitational distortion left no detectable traces in the remaining matter. As far as they can determine, the planet simply decided to split in half. The briefing concluded with routine matters of trade, disputes, cultural exchange programs, and infrastructure development. Stone dismissed the other participants and remained alone with her thoughts, watching alien ships navigate the busy space lanes outside her window. Earth's strategy had succeeded beyond their most optimistic projections. By demonstrating overwhelming force followed by reasonable behavior, humanity had earned respect without creating excessive fear. The galaxy now saw Earth as a powerful but benevolent neighbor, one that could solve problems other species couldn't handle. But Stone knew that the real test would come when some species inevitably decided to test human resolve. The galaxy was vast, and not every civilization would accept the new balance of power peacefully. Somewhere among the stars, ambitious leaders were probably planning to exploit what they saw as human weakness, the reluctance to use their full capabilities. When that challenge came, humanity would need to respond with precision and overwhelming force, just as they had at Kepler Prime. The galaxy had gotten the message once, but messages sometimes needed to be repeated for those who hadn't been paying attention. Stone activated her secure communicator and sent a brief message to General Hayes on Earth. Status report: galactic integration proceeding as planned. Recommend maintaining current posture of strength through restraint. The response came back within minutes, carried by quantum entanglement networks that operated faster than light itself. Understood. New threats are being monitored. Earth remains ready to remind the galaxy why cooperation is preferable to conflict. Outside her window, a massive Altarian dreadnought passed close to the station, its hull bristling with weapons that had once seemed terrifyingly advanced. Now Stone knew that a single human frigate could disable that ship before its crew realized they were under attack. The knowledge was both comforting and sobering. The galaxy had indeed gotten the message. Earth's warning shot had split more than just a planet. It had shattered the old assumptions about power, hierarchy, and who truly ruled among the stars. Some species had learned this lesson through wisdom, accepting humanity as an equal partner in galactic civilization. Others would eventually need more direct instruction. But for now, peace reigned among the stars, maintained by the certain knowledge that somewhere in the depths of space, human ships patrolled silently, their crews ready to remind anyone who forgot that Earth's restraint was a choice, not a weakness. The new balance had been established, and the galaxy was learning to live with neighbors who preferred cooperation but were fully prepared for any alternative that might be forced upon them. Humanity had taken its place among the stars not as conquerors or victims, but as the guardians of a peace built on mutual respect and the understanding that some lines should never be crossed. The warning shot had been heard across the galaxy, and the message remained clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated, threatened, or enslaved. Those who remembered this truth would find Earth to be a generous ally and valuable partner. Those who forgot would discover why splitting planets was considered a demonstration of restraint rather than aggression. The galaxy had gotten the message, and humanity stood ready to send reminders to anyone who needed their memory refreshed.